Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
So tell me, /X/, did you ever have a friend or someone you knew as a kid who did screwed up things, or was off in some way?
I still know a guy. We really don't hang out as much, but we still talk and bullshit over Facebook. When we were about 14, maybe 15, he and some of my other friends were drinking and smoking while walking around the ledges, our local sort of cliff-type area with huge drops. I was lucky enough to not have gone that day. I guess they were just casually strolling near the cliffs when some random kid started walking towards them. I guess he was just minding his own business out for a walk. They said he couldn't have been much older than we were. Well, when the kid got close enough, one of our friends said, "Watch this," and pushed the kid off the cliff. They all said that they heard him hit the ground, but no one checked to see if he died instantly. They all ran. I know the area they were at. It was about 50 or 60-foot drop onto rocks. If he didn't die instantly, he probably died later because it's a pretty rural place. I didn't find out about this until about 4 years after it happened. A bud of mine who was there when it happened got drunk with me and spilled his guts about it. Said he wished he never went with him, and he thinks about that poor kid all the time. It's weird too, because we all knew this kid was kinda unstable, but I never expected to randomly push some kid off a cliff.
Every single person involved that day deserves to be killed, including your friends. If I saw someone push someone else off a cliff, I would grab the nearest rock and brain the fuck out of them. Do not associate with evil people.
Well, me and my buddy both did screwed up stuff to each other in high school. We purposely planned things out weeks ahead of time to harass the other one. Like practical jokes, only more harmful, and neither of us can prove the other was responsible. Examples. I set events in motion that led to his super religious GF finding out that he had slept with her friend while they were dating. They broke up. I've also gotten him in minor traffic accidents. He's gotten me suspended from school for punching some kid I thought was threatening me. Turns out the notes weren't from him. I can't prove they were from my buddy, but I'm pretty sure. He's also almost gotten me fired before by having people tell people I was saying shit about some chick, and her BF caused all kinds of shit at my workplace. He also didn't mention that this hot chick wanted me to ask her to prom. Later, he said, "I thought you knew," and grinned. Neither of us really have any anger for the other. I mean, he's a cool guy. I think we were both just a little sick. Oh, and when we'd work together, that's when shit got real. We'd sit in the library and plan things. Eventually, people started noticing, and people would be on edge when they'd see us together there. We never got caught, but people basically knew what was going on. I remember one time we influenced voting for prom king and queen so that two popular kids, who were jerks, that had just broken up, were elected. The dude was called up first and seemed okay with it, but then they called the girl's name. The guy's date was pissed at him, and the other chick ran out crying. It was funny. It wasn't always mean shit, though. We did good things sometimes.
I have a few stories about my cousins. Be a youngin'. I don't really remember how old exactly. Spent a lot of time with my two cousins. One was my age, one was 3 years older. Always had a weird feeling around my older cousin, like something was just off about him. He was manipulative and sometimes very mean. One day, older cousin suggested we play hide and seek. He's going to find me and my younger cousin. My younger cousin tells me to hide in the dryer. Run off and hide in the dryer. Leave the door slightly cracked so that I'm not visible, but I can get out of the dryer. Here running, here laughing. The dryer door slams shut. Instant. Terror. I start pounding on the door, crying and screaming for help. I was young, but I still knew that this was a bad situation, and that I could die. All I can think is, why did I hide in the dryer? Why? Here slamming on the dryer's buttons. Here more laughing. Dryer starts to move. Realize I'm about to die. Aunt comes in screaming and pulls me out of the dryer, sob in her arms. A while after the dryer incident, shortly after that, playing ball with cousins in the street, just tossing around a tennis ball, fail to catch the tennis ball and it rolls into a storm drain. We all huddle around the drain. The tennis ball is right underneath the drain, but our arms aren't long enough to reach it. The storm drain is broken and is missing the bar over the opening. We were small enough to climb through, but decided not to. Start riding our bikes instead. Older cousin cuts off younger cousin out of nowhere, and younger cousin's tires start wobbling. He slams his bike into a parked car and nearly breaks his arm. Starts bawling. Older cousin panics, picks him up, and starts stuffing him down the storm drain, telling him to get the tennis ball. Puts his bike in front of the opening. Aunt calls us inside for dinner. Stare at the plate blankly the entire time, thinking about hurt cousin in the storm drain. Older cousin told me not to say anything. He was afraid he would get in trouble for causing my younger cousin to crash into the car. He thought he would get in trouble specifically for the car being damaged, not that my younger cousin probably broke his arm. Aunt immediately notices that younger cousin is missing, because how would she not notice that? Asks about it. Cousin says nothing. Say, "He fell down the storm drain." Older cousin stares. Aunt stares, hardly able to believe it. Younger cousin eventually is rescued and has a broken arm, but he brought up the tennis ball. Last one about cousins, 7 or 8 years old. I have a brother, 5 years younger. I don't like going over to my cousin's house anymore for obvious reasons. They are over my house for a play date with my brother and I. Go outside and run around for a while. It's early fall. My older cousin gets tired and is pissed off that we have to play with my brother. He's young and slightly annoying, but it was enjoyable to play with him. Older cousin suggested we play a game with him, as younger cousin and I hold him down. No idea what is going on. Starts shoving leaves and sticks and dirt into my brother's mouth and down his throat. Start crying and screaming. Brother is crying and thrashing around. His mouth is filled and cousin just keeps cramming more and more in. Try to push cousins away, but they are too big. Start frantically trying to pull leaves and other debris out of his mouth. Father comes outside because of all the noise. Blame for it. Both of my cousins appear to be normal human beings now.
I almost got my brother killed when I was about 8 to 10. We were playing around in the halls on a cruise ship. I noticed a small door. I'm not sure what was in there, but I presume it was some generator room or something. Slightly opened, and I thought it would be funny to push my brother in there. So I playfully told him to tackle me. He launched himself in my direction, and before he could grab me, I got out of the way and attempted to pull the door open. Luckily, I wasn't quick enough. I only managed to open the door halfway and he bumped his head on the door. Or he could have gotten killed. It still haunts me to this day.
I hope these stories will make you feel any better. According to parents and relatives, I also did shit like that when I was a child. Exclusively directed towards my brother, who is 1 year younger than I. It usually was just general bullying, but sometimes it'd go a step beyond. Once, when I was around 5, I taunted him to make him charge at me. I was standing in front of a door. Behind it, there was a concrete staircase leading downstairs, about 3 meters high. I opened the door and he fell. Luckily, he didn't really get hurt, just got some bruises. Another time he was chasing me. There was one of those opaque glass doors. I closed the door right as he was charging at me, and he got a semi-deep cut on his hand. I was like 7. I also threw fairly heavy things at him on several occasions. One of them left him a scar on his eyebrow. The one time I really remember was when I somehow made him stop breathing with a kick to the stomach. I don't even remember why I did it. We argued a lot about stupid things as kids do. I was like 6 years old, I think. Anyway, I didn't realize that he had stopped breathing. I just remember that instead of telling my mother, I ran to hide. My mother noticed about a minute later, and my father reanimated him. He was all right. I shudder at the thought of what might have happened if she hadn't noticed quickly, or at all. This shit sends me into a pit of guilt and anxiety whenever I think about it, especially the last story. The point is, Kids sometimes don't realize the possible consequences to their actions, or don't immediately empathize with those they might have harmed, but they eventually do as they grow up. True psychos lack empathy entirely.
This happened to me when I was in the 6th grade, B11. I rode a yellow school bus every day. A middle school and a high school shared a parking lot, so middle schoolers and high schoolers were bused to school together. English was not my first language, so I was bullied a lot. This freshman, Mike, who got off at my stop, loved to tackle me every day after school. He would always wait a few seconds to give me a running start, then dive for me. This junior girl, Amy, who was super punk and had no friends, decided to protect me. She warned him not to do it anymore one morning while we were waiting for the bus, 8 hours later. Forgetting about what she said, I hopped off the bus and hoped to outrun Mike. He dove, and I went down. As he still had his arms wrapped around my knees, I heard a crack. Amy was beating the ever-loving shit out of Mike's skull with a bag full of textbooks. Mike missed school the rest of the week. Nobody said a thing from our stop. I sat on the bus with Amy every day, my only friend. We never talked much. She just read books over my shoulder and walked me home every day. One day Amy wasn't at the bus stop. I was scared shitless of what was going to happen with Mike. I jumped off the bus and started running for my life. A middle-aged man whom I had seen plenty of times around the neighborhood but didn't really know was waiting at the bus stop. "Anon, slow down. I'm here to walk with you." It was Amy's dad, and if looks could kill, Mike would have been dead from his stare. Amy's mom or dad took turns walking me home every day for the rest of the year. They never told me what happened and just said that Amy was busy. My conversational English wasn't good enough to press. A year later, I found out Amy was transferred to live with grandparents in another state to finish school. Why? Amy's parents told my parents eventually what happened. Apparently, Amy was picked on even more than I was. Her parents found a hit list with a bunch of her classmates' names. My name had Protect written next to it.
One that springs to mind was a British kid named James I went to school with. He moved to the US when he was about 12. Sometimes we'd go over to his house on a weekend, just a few of us. When his dad came home, we left. He wasn't angry about having people in his house or anything, he just had a load of work to do. Always on the phone, in his office, and so on. We liked him, because he'd usually leave us a few 20s for pizza if he was on a business trip. James and his dad did not have the sort of relationship we had with our dads. They had some unspoken understanding with each other, almost like business partners. It was really strange to see. He never told him to do his homework. James never complained to him about anything, and in turn, his dad never gave him BS. Over the years, we stayed friends. Not best friends, but we always hung out together. When he turned 18, he went back to England to study, and I lost contact with him, before social networking was big. Coming back from my first semester at college, I looked through the yearbook. He wasn't in it. Couldn't find him in any school photos either. I was planning a summer trip to Europe and wanted to start in England and see him. I ended up speaking to my dad about it, who revealed some things to me. My dad and his dad went to the range once, and the guy apparently knew more about small arms and marksmanship than anyone else he had met. My dad did 2 tours of Vietnam and is a lifetime member of the NRA. So that's something. Before I went on my Euro trip, I went back to my old school and did some work with the seniors and their college applications. Ended up reminiscing with the principal and talked about some of the kids in my class. I mentioned I was going to Europe and that I'd like to see James again. The principal told me, which he probably shouldn't have, that James was not his real name and to completely forget about it. I have no idea what that was about. Left it well alone.
When I was about 7, I started playing with these kids around the corner from my grandparents' house. I had not been on that part of the block before, so all the kids there were new to me. Most were my age or in a similar range, but there were about 3 that I remember who were older. A stuck-up boy who disliked me for no reason I could figure out. His brother with muscular dystrophy, who always had a boombox and was pretty cool. And another boy who was tall and about 14. His name was James, but everyone called him Jamer. He lived with his mum, grandmother, and younger brother, who was about 5. The mum was never home. Jamer was pretty sick-minded. The sidewalks in some parts of that neighborhood were still brick, and he'd take up the loose bricks and make a little oven out of them. A brick on the bottom, one for each side, and one more for a lid. He'd fill it with leaves, grass, and twigs and put insects into it. Then he'd light a match and put the lid on. He made sure to call over all the little kids to watch him do it too. Essentially, he was making brick death ovens for helpless creatures. The person who bought the house on that corner had the bricks removed and replaced with cement because they were old and loose, and kids were falling off their bikes, and people kept tripping on the bricks. He also planted some saplings. Jamer liked to break the saplings and chase people with the thin trunks. They were as sharp as a spear too. I'm surprised no one was accidentally impaled. There's more though. He was a pervert. I matured very early, and he started getting really weird with me then. He didn't seem to have any friends his age because he was so creepy and weird, so he hung around little kids all the time. I used to sleep over a lot at the house with the friends my age I met when I was 7. I found out one night that he was sleeping there too. No idea why the parents would allow that. So I made up an excuse that my stomach hurt so I could go home. I think I may have dodged a bullet there that night. I didn't trust being alone with him at all. After that, he started to really harass me. Either he was mad that he missed a chance to do something to me, or he knew that I left because of him. He called me inappropriate things that are neither funny or appropriate when you are a 16-year-old talking to a 9-year-old. He started to threaten me. He said he was going to take me behind a building, and I was too afraid and ashamed to tell anyone because I thought it was my fault. I really felt like that. It led to me harming myself there later on, and I ended up with a stigma about my chest that I only now am getting over. My only recourse was to avoid him entirely. I now live in that neighborhood too. He rode by my house on his bike. I stopped coming outside. To this day, I'm afraid to tell my family what happened to me. I think it's pointless now anyway, but I think that I very well could have ended up dead in an alley had I not avoided him. But luckily, the whole family moved. I heard something happened to the mother. I'm not sure. It might have been a rumor, but the house was shut up and empty for a very long time. Years later, I was in the dollar store with my mum and I saw Jamer again. He had gotten really fat, and the way he was dressed sort of reminded me of Harold from Hey Arnold. His gut was poking out of his shirt, but that wasn't what surprised me. He was with his grandmother and asked her in a very childlike voice, "Nana, can I have a colouring book?" He looked as vacant as a dumb cow or something. I quickly left the store before he saw me. I saw him once again a couple of years later, at a Kmart. He saw me too, and I knew he recognised me. He still looked the same with that dumb cow expression. I just headed off into a rack of clothes and tried to stay away until he left. I have no idea what happened to him. I heard all sorts of rumours about his sudden case of mental deficiency. Some said it was brain damage from some kind of overdose. I don't know, but in a way that kind of saddens me. I think he deserved what he got. I know that makes me sound like a bad person, but he was a cruel, perverted weirdo who hung around kids much younger than him. I hate to think that I wasn't his only victim too. I often wonder if there were other girls he harassed and threatened, and if he did something really bad to them. He made me hate myself and think I was doing something wrong. I have another story about these other 2 kids that ends much worse. I might post it in a bit. I can't sleep. Since sleep will not come, I guess I'll post it now. Across the street from me, there was this older woman taking care of her 3 grandchildren because the parents were messed up. The girl was fine, but her younger brothers were a little off. One of them, Kevin, was a little slow and did all kinds of weird things. He once stole a dog off of a person's porch because his grandmother wouldn't buy him a puppy. I remember the dog's name was Splash because there were flyers up everywhere with his picture on them after the theft. He kept the dog in the basement, and the grandmother found out after a day or 2 because it was whimpering to get out. He gave her some convoluted story about it being a friend's, and the friend would be coming back. She bought it, and after a few days my mum saw the flyer, and then saw the dog across the street on their porch. She called them up, and sure enough, it was Splash. The kid confessed to stealing him off their porch, but since he was about 7, I guess they felt bad about alerting the authorities. He somehow got another dog, but I'm not sure what happened with it. I'm assuming he stole it, and the grandmother made him give it back. Then this trashy family moved into the house next to the friends I had played with when I was 7 or 9. They had several kids, one of which was autistic and completely non-verbal, but they had one boy, about 8, who was really messed up in the head. I can't remember his name, but he became friends with Kevin. A bad combo. There was a dead cat in the street that had been hit by a car. Very sad. They took the cat's body and swung it around by its tail. They were actually walking around the neighborhood with the dead cat by its tail, swinging it at people. Then people's cats started to disappear. They were found dead, hanging in trees. This boy confessed to it like it was cool. He said Kevin helped, but Kevin was too afraid to say anything. He was already in enough trouble with his family for stealing dogs. Anyway, the end of the story, this kid then set fire to his house. On purpose. Because he wanted to burn down a house. His autistic brother almost died because he couldn't talk and was too afraid to leave the spot where he was hiding from the fire. I don't know what happened after that because the fire damage was too bad and they had to move. But I often wonder what happened to that kid and Kevin. They certainly weren't on a path to very healthy adult lives.
My sophomore year of college, I lived in a dorm suite with 4 other dudes, one of which was an obnoxious, unintelligent sort of sociopath named Lucas. I knew from the start that he was weird and had some social issues. But as the year went on and on, he became very difficult to tolerate. He was from a very wealthy family in New Jersey and is also a distant relative of Steven Spielberg. He would get mad at just about everything. Even though he had a nice TV, he decided to remove it from the common room and keep it in his bedroom. It was just little things like this at first that made us start to actively dislike him. About a month into the semester, when we were hanging out with a bunch of people, I mentioned that I was a Republican, since the conversation drifted toward that topic. This being a liberal arts school in Boston, everyone was surprisingly cool, but Lucas was particularly surprised and would bring it up constantly for the next few months. I noticed that he never made any attempt to talk to girls and was only friends with guys. Not many though, because everyone who knew him hated him. Because of this, I jokingly started to think he was an egomaniac, but after a while I started to realize that I was probably right. On a side note, during the first half of the year, I had a bunch of lucid dreaming experiences by only getting half a night's sleep, going to class, then getting the other half after, which is a quick way to induce a lucid dream. During one of these dreams, I stepped out of my room only to run into the dream version of Lucas. His face looked like it had been cross-fed with Aphex Twin, and his smile was stretching up his entire face. Needless to say, I got out of that dream pretty quickly and interpreted it as a warning about him. And after that, I was always on my guard when he was around. The following spring, I ended up at a party at my good friend's house in Alston, where I proceeded to get way too shit-faced, eventually banging my head on a wall and causing it to bleed for half an hour. After some friends patched me up, I quickly left the party and took the train back to campus. I remember almost none of that, as well as what happened when I got back to my dorm. But luckily, Lucas was there to fill in some gaps a few days later when he showed me a video he had taken. Around this time, Lucas had made a habit of staring at me in my room. I smoked and listened to music a lot in my bed with headphones on, and if I ever had my door ajar, I'd always open my eyes and see Lucas watching me through the crack of the door. At first, it seemed like a joke, but he kept on doing it more and more, enough for me to start making sure the door was shut and locked when I listened to some tunes. What I didn't know was that on many of these occasions, Lucas would actually record me being stoned and listening to music on his phone. The night I was wasted, I had come back to our place an incoherent mess, and Lucas decided to record the whole thing. When I saw the footage, it was basically me holding a drink with this huge dumb grin and smiling. Nothing particularly awful, but definitely embarrassing. After showing me it, I asked if I could see the phone, making some bullshit about how I thought the vid was funny, and I quickly deleted it, which he didn't notice until later. That entire week, he was extremely cold to me after. It seemed like he really treasured that video, and probably because he secretly had an obsession with me. Another thing that had happened to make me think that was one Wednesday night when I was sitting on my bed doing homework around 7 p.m. He suddenly walks into my room and asks me if I want to get drunk with him in his room, just the two of us, with this big grin on his face. Naturally, I say no, and he was rude to me for the rest of the week. The thing that really made him seem messed up was the week of the Boston Marathon bombing. Since my school had a lot of journalism majors and was close to where the bombings occurred, the whole school was pretty active on social media around that time. But Lucas was something else. He was constantly glued to the television, watching the news with a smile on his face, while the rest of us were just getting stoned together lamenting about the folly of man. He was getting a kick from all the action and was the most excited we had ever seen him. He definitely had a human side at times and expressed his desire for more people to like him, but for the most part, he was just a shitty, sometimes creepy person who occasionally would shout about things he would do to basketball players and coaches whenever a game was on TV. He was incredibly obsessed with sports, and as far as I know, his passion is to be a sports reporter at some point. Hopefully, he'll get the kind of job he wants and start to turn into a more normal person. Or maybe all the years of no one showing him any love attention will turn him into a freak or something. I hope it's the former.
You have some real issues. Killing is wrong, therefore they need to be killed and you're the one to do it. They did bad, and they should be shunned for their behavior. But piling violence on violence helps nobody.
Murder someone. Oh, just shun him. Nope. You take a rock and you crack their skull open and let their blood and brains slop onto the ground. If you are a human being on the side of right, you are free and encouraged to take justice in your own hands. The law will protect you. If someone murders someone else in front of you, you are 100% legally and morally obligated to put them down. If you can't, you are legally obligated to go get some real men who will do it for you, which is why we have law enforcement. You can actually kill someone for threatening your life. If they pull a knife or gun or you or someone you know, you can end them on the spot and you'll be spared. You did the right thing. Most cops cannot put a bullet in the head of a murderer, but they want to, and they should be able to. They can't. They have to wait until they either catch the person in the act, have evidence of him and a warrant already, or they have to wait for the person to attack them personally. Cops can't be everywhere at all times, which is why they will allow citizens to take matters into their own hands. Look it up. You can kill a person for murdering someone else in front of you. You will need to show up to court, but you will not be punished for it. You just have to explain what happened, and you are given back to society, usually with thanks. Name might end up in the paper, etc. Nobody will blame you. Allowing a murderer to live is a mortal sin. It's called being an accomplice to a crime, so it's against the law as well. If you allow someone to murder someone else and get away with it, you can go to prison for life. It is your moral and legal duty to end them or restrain them so they can be punished.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.